LSU wraps up a 3-game sweep of North Alabama. So what have we learned about the Tigers as they get set for conference play? It's Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you for that. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Okay, we got a ton to get into today. Kyle Williams' contract for defensive line coach. We've learned about that. I got some thoughts. We'll get there. LSU has wrapped up its final pre-SEC baseball weekend with a sweep of North Alabama. What do we know about the Tigers so far through the 4 weekends of pre-conference play? We'll delve into that here in just a smidge, but let's start with Sunday's game out at the box. Tigers won game 1 and game 2 against North Alabama, and they were going for the sweep in game 3, and they got it. 11-5 was the final score. If you want our full recaps of games 1 and 2, of course, if you're an everydayer, shout out. Thank you for that. You've already heard them, but you can go back and check that out, YouTube or Facebook. You can get our full recaps there. So a couple of takeaways from game 3. Let's start with Chase Shores, who, as we know the story, Shores, with big 6'8" righty, throws 100 and was going to be a key component as a freshman on the 23 national championship team, suffers the torn UCL, has Tommy John, misses all of last season, and now Chase Shores is coming back into this season for LSU, and we have seen Chase Shores really start to extend, which is very encouraging, and we saw it again on Sunday. Shores went 5 innings, but he threw 94 pitches, which I think is probably the most important part of the weekend for Chase Shores. It's not so much how deep he went into the ball game. It's the fact that he was able to extend to 94 pitches. And in the 5th inning, which was his last, as he was approaching the end of his day, he was still touching 97 miles an hour. So a guy who's in his first action since Tommy John, to be able to go out there and as he's approaching 100 pitches is still touching 97, that's excellent to see. So remember, week 1 against Purdue Fort Wayne, he threw 67 pitches. Against Omaha, he threw 84. Against Sam Houston last week in Frisco, he threw 89 and now up to 94. And by the way, each of his 4 outings, Chase Shores has been at 5 innings on the number. He has thrown 5 innings complete in each of his 4 outings. So, and we've seen that pitch count elevate, even though it's 4 innings. And here's what I would say. If you are in any way discouraged by the fact that Shores is, quote unquote, only giving you 5 innings, if you have a Sunday guy that can get you 5 innings, and through his 4 outings, by the way, Shores has allowed, here's the runs allowed: 1, 0, 4 against Sam Houston before he settled in, and then 2 against North Alabama. I'll take that every single time on a Sunday. Most teams don't have a number 3 starter. Most teams are going whole staff on Sunday trying to figure it out. LSU's got to do that 6'8" and throws 100 as their number 3 guy. And if he gives you 5 innings on Sunday with an opportunity to win the ball game, awesome. So I get it. It's not dominating, overpowering, or anything of that sort, but you'll take what you got. Now, Shores in this ball game allowed 9 hits in 5 innings. And the real challenge for me with this and looking at the 9 hits and the 2 runs that Short allowed, he just wasn't hit hard. And quite honestly, one of the things that really annoyed me about this game on Sunday is the 2 spot that Shores allowed in the third. If you go look at, if you have the time, tolerance, temperament, whatever, to go back and look at that third inning, there were 2 instances where Chase Shores induced ground balls that would have been double plays that would have got him out of the inning. But LSU defensively was in a shift. And both times, the North Alabama hitter hit opposite the shift where there was nobody home, and ultimately that ended up being what scored their 2 runs. They went fly out, double, walk, single, which was an RBI single. That, again, beat the shift. And then a single through the left side, which beat the shift. That's the 2 runs they scored. So he ended up getting a strikeout and a pop-out to finish the inning. But if you're playing a traditional alignment, he gets a ground ball, which is what you're looking for in that situation, and gets out of the inning with no damage. Look, I know Jay Johnson's talked about this, and Coach Wanaka, he's said, Jay Johnson has said, is the best ever at defensive alignment, the best he's ever worked with in defensive alignment. Okay, I'm not a baseball savant. Those guys do this all the time. How many times do we see the defensive alignment work? I'm sure they've got statistics. But it's hard to look at a situation like Sunday where twice your pitcher makes the right pitch, gets the ground ball, but there's no defender there because you're in a shift. There are times the shift works, sure. It feels like every time it hurts you, though, it's magnified. And that was the case. So on Sunday. Anyway, the good news for LSU is that the offense showed up. The Tigers put up a 4 spot in the first inning, and it was fun to watch it unfold the way it did. Derek Curiel led off the game with a walk, and then Jared Jones homered to right field, an opposite field homer that just cleared the fence. Remember, on Saturday, he hit a homer, missed a homer that hit the top of the wall in left center. Well, in this instance, they stayed away from him. Jones hit a fly ball down the right field line, just inside of the foul pole, and just cleared the wall. But LSU's up 2-0. Dickinson reaches on an error. Pearson lines out the second. Milam beats the shift, hits a single to left field, which was a beautiful piece of hitting by Milam. And then Brown, with an out and a runner in scoring position, singles up the middle, which scores a run. The other thing that was really interesting is the next AB, when Reeves is at the plate. Remember, you got first and third. You got Milam at third, and you got Brown at first. Well, LSU does a double steal. Milam takes off for home. Brown takes off for second. The catcher throws down to second. They get Brown at second, but the run scores. It's just another illustration of how many different ways Jay Johnson is trying to be aggressive on the base paths. Now, I don't love giving up the run at giving up the out at second base, but to score a run, I'll take it. In that situation, they did. And we've seen so much offensive strategy from this Jay Johnson team that's so different from the first 3 that he coached at LSU. You're seeing suicide squeezes. You're seeing double steals. You're seeing hit and runs. You're seeing straight steals. You're just seeing guys be very aggressive on the base path. And I think it's one of those things where he recognizes he's got a team that is athletic and fast. And when you get on the base path, he's going to put pressure on the defense. And it's been pretty good. And it worked out for LSU again on Sunday. They put up that 4th spot in the first. Stephen Milam hit a solo homer in the 4th. Then the big inning came in the 6th. Josh Pearson hit a grand slam in the 6th, which was awesome. And they put up a 6th spot. And after that, when LSU was up 11-2, that allowed Jay Johnson to go to the bullpen with a variety of different arms. And that's probably the other takeaway. So I want to remind you, because if there's one big thing, one big criticism maybe that LSU fans have had so far, it's been the bullpen and the walks and all that sort of stuff. I want to illustrate this point again, okay? Because I've made it a couple times, but I want to illustrate it here. So Shores gives you five innings of 2-run ball. Connor Benj goes out there and throws the 6th, strikes out 2. He walked 1, but no runs, 1 over the limit. You're up 11-2 on Sunday. You're up 11-2. You can throw anyone out there at this point. And Jay Johnson did. Jay Newt goes out there and pitches the 7th, faces the minimum, strikes out 2. Awesome. Then he goes to Cooper Williams in the 8th, a guy that's had some struggles with command. And Williams strikes out 2. Again, lefty with electric stuff, but he also walked 2 in the inning and gave up a run. So it's one of those things where you look and you go, who do you trust? Well, you're figuring that out. And in a tight spot, Williams is probably not the guy you're going to trust because he just keeps walking guys. And then Chandler Dorsey went out there for the 9th. And Dorsey's a guy who was the closer for South Florida a year ago. Jay Johnson pitched him in the midweek debut for 2025. And Jay was pretty candid after that game. He said, look, this is a guy that's really struggled for us so far and fallen in pre-conference, but wanted to get him out there. Pitched well in the midweek. They gave him another opportunity here, and it didn't go well. Dorsey goes out there. He throws the 9th, but he walked a guy. He allowed a couple of hits. He threw a wild pitch. 2 runs came home. Now, he struck out 2, but he had to work around a lot of damage in that 9th. Ended up throwing 23 pitches in the 9th inning. Now, when you've got an 11-3 lead, it's one of those things where it's not going to hurt you. But I'll continue to illustrate the point. Jay Johnson has determined who the guys are that he knows he can count on. And when it's leverage spots, he's going to go to those guys. When you're up 11-2 on North Alabama, he'll run Newt and Williams and Dorsey out there. And so you can look at that at the end of the game and go, bullpen. And I would say, look at the last 2 days. Look at Zach Cowan and go and giving you the 8th and the 9th of shutout baseball where he strikes out 5 of the 6 hitters he faces. Like, that's more what I'm going to look at. You didn't see Kason Evans this weekend, who is nails. You still haven't even seen Gavin Guidry yet this year. The point is, they know so far through this month who the guys are they can count on, and you saw it again on Sunday with who they chose to go to in those key spots. So LSU has now won 11 in a row. Tigers finish conference play or pre-conference play, I should say, at 16-1. Their only loss was that loss to Omaha in the first game of a doubleheader. They will have a midweek game against Xavier before they open up conference play coming up this weekend against Missouri. So what have we learned about the Tigers so far through this month? Let's talk about it. Locked on LSU, your team every day. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need, delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Masters program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Today's show is also brought to you by Wayfair. Your home should reflect your style. And with Wayfair, it's easier than ever to make that happen. Whether you're looking for a simple refresh or tackling a big home project, Wayfair has everything you need in one place. Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find the perfect piece no matter your space or budget. From cozy furniture and stylish decor to kitchen essentials and outdoor must-haves, Wayfair has it all, and at prices that fit your budget. More than just a furniture store, you'll be surprised. You can find anything from storage solutions to patio decor, making it my go-to for all things home. As a matter of fact, the desk I'm sitting at right now got from Wayfair. The rug in the room you're behind me, I got from Wayfair. You should as well. So head over to wayfair.com and find something that's just your style today. That's wayfair.com. WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Pre-conference weekends are over now for LSU, and the Tigers are 16-1 overall. Of course, the only loss being to Omaha a couple of weeks ago at the Box, the first game of that doubleheader. And this is a good time to sort of assess where you are as a team with SEC play looming. Of course, the Tigers have gone through 4 pre-conference weekends. And as we often say here, the season you sort of break up into sections. The first month is you come into the season thinking you know some things about your team based on your intra-squad work. Now you go play someone else and you start to validate or you confirm or disconfirm that. You have your pre-conference. Then you have conference play. There's going to be an evolution during conference play, but the objective is get through conference play to make sure you win enough games so that postseason runs through Alex Box Stadium. When you get to postseason, obviously, it ratchets up another degree and you condense your roster, your lineup, and your pitching staff with the guys who are your best in their best role to help you go win a national championship. That's the evolution of the season. Well, the first part of that is done. And the season now, as LSU is 17 games in, season's a quarter over now. So now you go into conference play. So what have we learned through the first month about this LSU team? Well, I think we can start with the pitching rotation. LSU has a cumulative staff ERA right now of 3.02, which is 5th in the SEC. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that that's incredible right now, that's, something that is otherworldly, but you're talking about an SEC team right now, an LSU team that's got a 3.02 staff ERA that has struck out right now 200 hitters. I'm looking, the only pitching staffs that have struck out more than the 200 the LSU staff has cumulatively, it looks like, as I look at it, is Tennessee at 201, Florida at 203, and Georgia at 204. So, you're talking about this clump of very elite, high-level pitching at the top of the conference, and LSU is right there with them. Your rotation feels set. Anderson, Ianson, Shores. None of those guys has done anything to lose their spot, and no one outside of that has been so good to justify taking a spot. It's not to say that won't happen. It certainly could. Look, Ianson struggled at the onset against Nebraska, where he allowed 5 runs, but he came back and was awesome. On Saturday, Ianson had that struggle in the first inning where he allowed a couple of runs, came back, struck out 15 hitters, and became very efficient thereon. Got through 7 in fewer than 100 pitches. So you haven't seen anything right now to suggest you should make any type of change. And then, as we mentioned a bit ago, Shea Shores as your Sunday guy. Remember, most teams don't even have a number 3. LSU in the national championship year didn't have a number 3. You had Paul Skeens, Ty Floyd, and then a giant question mark. Now, late in the season, it was fantastic to watch Thatcher Hurd emerge the way he did. And you got some otherworldly performances in Omaha from Griffin Herring and from Nate Ackenhausen, but you didn't have a consistent number 3. If Chase Shores ends up being a guy 6'8", throwing 100, that's your number 3, giving you 5 innings, you're going to win a lot of Sunday games in the league because a lot of teams are going to be depleted in their staff, and you got a guy that can get you 5 with the lead. So you feel really good right now about your rotation. We also mentioned the bullpen. Now, I know this is a point of contention because of the walks. And I just went through the strikeout numbers for the SEC. Well, go look at the walks in the Southeastern Conference as well. And you can look at where the SEC pitching is right now with walks. LSU pitching has walked 62 hitters. The only staffs that have walked more, Ole Miss has walked 70. South Carolina's walked 63. Georgia's walked 87. So Georgia's 87, Ole Miss is 70, South Carolina's 63. The only staffs that have walked more hitters than LSU's. But who are you counting on? Sunday, Cooper Williams went out through the 8th, walked a couple more guys. That's not a guy right now you're counting on in leverage spots. I just mentioned your starters. After that, Zach Cowan, Connor Benj, Kaysen Evans, Ware, Schmidt, Guidry when he comes back. These are the guys you know you're going to count on. And if your starters are getting you through 6 and 7 innings in conference play, like they did this weekend, certainly your first two guys, then you don't need to go eat up 15 innings from your bullpen over the weekend. And if that's the case, I'll put it to you this way. If LSU on Friday night is playing Missouri out at the box and Cade Anderson gives you 7 innings and it's a 3-2 ball game, who do you think's getting the ball in the 8th? It's not Cooper Williams. It's not DJ Primo. It's not Grant Fontenot. They're giving the ball to Kaysen Evans and saying, go get me 6 outs and get me a win in conference play. And you feel good about that. That's what we're going to see as they sort of shrink the rotation. I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. The great Skip Bertman, greatest college baseball coach ever, would often say that when he got to Omaha, he would be down to 6, maybe 7 pitchers. Different format at the time, but the point remains. He was at a point where you condense the guys that you can count on to get you through a tournament. That's what Jay Johnson and Nate Yeske have to finalize right now. Who are the guys that you can count on right now to get you through an SEC weekend, which is going to mirror, hopefully, a 3-game regional, super regional, and then get you through the winner's bracket in Omaha, and you're identifying that. And then offensively, I really feel like this, we've talked about it a bunch, this isn't a team that's going to mash the baseball and set home run records, but they can score in a lot of different ways. And I think right now what we've learned is Jake Brown is your starting right fielder, undeniably. And you're probably going to see Ethan Fry and Josh Pearson DH. When you need a lefty, Pearson DHs. When you need a righty, it's Ethan Fry. And Luis Hernandez is your starting catcher. It's not to say Aaron Beatty won't play. He'll play plenty. But for conference play, Luis Hernandez is going to be your starting catcher. Hernandez right now is batting .270 on the season. He's just been better than Aaron Beatty, who's hitting .158, and he's a more experienced veteran catcher. You're going to go with Luis Hernandez. The bigger question is at third base. And right now, the last 3 games, this entire weekend, we saw Tanner Reeves start at third. I don't know that I believe Tanner Reeves is a better option than Michael Braswell. Braswell is a very good defensive third baseman, and we saw Braswell last year hit .311 in conference play. Like, I know he can. Braswell's hitting .182 right now. Not good. But Tanner Reeves, who had a nice weekend, is up to .296. And maybe that's enough for Jay Johnson to say, I'm going to go with Reeves. Maybe. But the thing is, I know that Braswell can hit in SEC play. He did it last year. He hit .311. He's spent 3 years in the conference. Reeves is coming up through JUCO. He just played non-conference games. He's hitting .296. What does it look like when Reeves gets into conference play? I don't know. So I still don't think that's definitively solved. That's the big question mark you have remaining. Who's going to settle in at third base? Is it Reeves? Is it Braswell? Or do you keep giving John Pearson a look and maybe give him a start at third base? I'm going to continue banging that drum because I think that's something that could end up being very profitable for Jay Johnson in this offense if John Pearson proves that he can play the hot corner. So Tigers have a midweek game against Xavier, and then they welcome in Missouri for the opening SEC weekend. And this is the best option you could possibly have to start conference play because Missouri's not very good. They are arguably the worst team in the SEC. Their staff ERA is 6.20. That is worse in the SEC. You should go out and win this weekend, if not sweep it at home. So you have a great opportunity to get SEC play off to a very positive start with Missouri coming in, and we'll find out which direction they go. Okay, let me knock out our final break of the show. We'll come back. We know some of the details of the Kyle Williams contract to be LSU's new defensive line coach. We'll go through that next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. Pick your favorites. You've got your eye on a few underdogs. FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, game props, and with tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. Also, the FanDuel app is simple to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly, no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. We learned from Wilson Alexander that Kyle Williams' contract as the new defensive line coach at LSU is going to be $700,000 per year. A 3-year deal at $700,000, and then it'll increase. He'll go from $700,000 to $775,000 to $850,000 in the 2027 season. That is a little stunning to me. And I'll explain to you why. We are in this NIL rev share era. We all know it. We all have talked plenty about the significance of the finances in college athletics. And Bo Davis he made $125 in his first year. He was set to go to $135, then $145 in the escalator in his 3-year contract. So Bo Davis was the highest paid defensive line coach in the country. And in part, he was able to do that. And Brian Kelly was okay with bringing him in because he had people that were in-house that were advocating for him. Scott Woodward, Ferg Osbury, Frank Wilson, guys that were advocating for Bo. An LSU guy that knew him well, that knew LSU well, best defensive line coach, technically best recruiter among the defensive line. And so you bring him home and you were willing to pay because you could go to the big boosters and justify that salary. Well, when Bo left, the first target was Gerald Chapman. And Gerald Chapman was making just under $600K at Florida. But his buyout was over $500,000. Excuse me. Scratch that. Was over $300,000. Forgive me. Gerald Chapman's buyout was over $300,000. So if you're LSU and you're interested in hiring Chapman, you're going to have to pay him about $7 million. And then you're going to have to go spend $300K on his buyout. Now, as I understand it, LSU wanted Chapman to pay that buyout at Florida. Chapman wasn't interested in doing that. And that's how the deal dissolved. But remember, that was going to be $1 million to pay Chapman and then also to pay his buyout. LSU didn't have the temperament to do that. You might say, wait a minute. Isn't this the program that paid Ed Ogeron $17 million to go away? Yes. But it's different with a head coach. And you're also living in a new era where LSU and every school has to tighten the belt financially with what they're spending because now you have a $20 million line item in revenue share to pay your student athletes. So all of a sudden, you have to be more frugal with how you're spending money. We've talked a little bit about this with LSU staff. You've seen some support staff members for LSU football go away and not be replaced. You've seen promotions from within. Jazz Smith, who was the director of football operations, she's out. J.R. Belton got a much-deserved promotion from within. And then we saw another promotion from within to replace J.R. Belton. So, with Donovan Tate. So you look at how LSU is structuring its football staff, and it's pretty obvious. They're being more, I don't want to say frugal because they're spending a lot, but they're being more spending conscious. So I would have assumed that Kyle Williams coming in, having never coached college football, that this would have been an opportunity to get Kyle Williams on a lower dollar number. Now, it's lower than what you were paying Bo Davis, who was at 125, then 135, then 145. But $700K is probably in line with what you would have been paying Gerald Chapman had you hired him. So the fact that LSU is paying Kyle Williams, who has never coached college football before, $700K in year one with escalators to $775 and then over $800K in year three, that is a pretty big surprise to me, because this would have felt like an opportunity to get a guy who loves LSU, who maybe has a high upside, but has never coached college football, and maybe to get him on a better financial deal. But LSU's going pretty heavy, giving Kyle Williams over $700,000 throughout his 3 years in Baton Rouge on this current contract. So we'll see how it all works out. But Tigers hit the practice field on Saturday. They're back on the practice field Tuesday. First media availability is Wednesday. I did get a few tidbits leaked to me after the first practice on Saturday. If you want those, go back and listen to or watch the episode from this weekend where we talked about Josh Thompson, the transfer offensive lineman from Northwestern, not being there for the beginning of spring practice because he's finishing the quarter there at Northwestern to finish his degree. He will join LSU at the end of March for the second half of spring practice. But you want some tidbits from that first spring practice, you can get it. Just go back and check out Locked on LSU from a couple of episodes ago on podcast or here on YouTube. Okay, that'll do it for us here. Thanks so much for making us your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, how about you go check out Locked on College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hey, if you are on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you every single day for Locked on LSU, your team every day.